Hello, white people. I have a couple of YouTubers that I want to talk about. The first one I'm going to talk about is Barricade Garage, and the second one I'm going to talk about is Gary. He has a channel, GrindL61, but he also has a second channel, Deegan something. Sorry. I will link it in the description, both of these fellas' channels. Okay, so the first one, Barricade Garage, I want to do a response to some of his videos that he's made lately. Now, if you've never followed Barricade Garage, he's a black guy with dreadlocks, and he's a mechanic. Okay, so that's probably why his channel is called Barricade Garage. And so the last several videos that I've watched of his, or at least the latest ones, have been rants. And before that, and then sometimes he doesn't talk about fixing anything anymore that I can see. He's been making fun of the culture war and all the characters in the culture war. So basically I'm responding to his last few rants. So the first thing that he was ranting about is there is no black community. And that really actually caught me off guard. I really had to think about that one. Really? There is no black community? And then in another video he said there is no white community. And I was like, wow, really? There is no white community? And he's absolutely right. There is no white community. There is no black community. There is no community. We've been globalized. You know, we are not a monolithic group anymore. White people are not monolithic. Well, absolutely, we know that white people are not monolithic. But white Americans, because only white people can be American, are not monolithic. Black people are not monolithic. Another thing he said was that we're all Americans, and that's where I completely disagree, because we're not all Americans. Those of us who have are in our genetics, you know, in our family tree, Americans. So where are your parents from? My parents are from America. We're Americans. And I can go back several generations and say up until, gosh, I don't know how when, till like the 1400s, and say, yeah, my ancestors were Americans. I've had a few that have come in, you know, like one from Scotland. I had one that was American Indian, you know, that kind of thing. But my family tree is American. And so the current day Americans, I don't know for sure, but I think about half the people who voted in this last election were foreign born. And a lot of people are running around. So about half the country's running around saying, I'm a hyphen American. And so if we all go around, oh, we're all Americans. No, we're not. We're not. We're not a monolithic group. And we can't be a community because we're not all the same. We're not homogeneous. In order for us to be a community, we have to be homogeneous. Now, we've been globalized, and globalization has really just torn us apart. And people are craving to be part of a community. That's what we want. We want to be part of a community. I kind of like it that I have my privacy, because in places where people are more connected and they have more of a community, like here in Ohio, everybody knows everything that you do. You know, my dog got out last week, and I posted that on Facebook, and people who aren't even on Facebook came over to tell me about my dog. So everybody knows there are no secrets. When you're part of a community, there are no secrets. But let's see. So I have to agree with him on that there is no community. But you know what? We're working on it. We're working to bring ourselves together as a community. And one of the examples that he gave as we're not being a community is that black people, white people will videotape each other, and will call the police, and will turn each other in. Now, the thing about white people is that if white people screw up, or if anybody screws up, a white person has the attitude, well, they deserve to be punished. And I can't speak for other groups, so I'm not even going to try. So, anyway, we used to be a country, America used to be a country of just leave people alone. And now we're a country of spying on each other and turning each other in. And so we're no longer a community. But anyway, let's move on to the next thing he said. And he said that the Nose tribe is not responsible for our problems. And I'm going to say, well, yes and no. So right now I'm 51 years old. If I run around saying all my problems are because of the Nose tribe, then I'm an irresponsible idiot. Okay. So all my problems are not because of them. All my problems are because of the choices that I've made in my life. But I was born, back in the 70s, and we didn't have the same influence and brainwashing and propaganda that the younger people did, the kids who were born in the 90s did. So it depends on what age group you're talking about. If you're talking about my age group, yeah, I'm responsible for, everybody's responsible for their behavior and their choices, but they're not responsible for the influence when they're younger, all right? So basically what we're all trying to do is we're all trying to deprogram ourselves. And so the younger group of people, I'd say, who were born after, in the 90s and later, they have more of the propaganda shoved down their throat and the indoctrination than my generation does. And and then another thing too is that when I was growing up, we didn't have easy credit. So how does easy credit affect anything anyway? And what does it have to do with the J tribe or with the nose tribe? Well, the thing is that people didn't live beyond their means or above their means. And so the classes didn't mix. We didn't have people who are like nowadays, people who are the dregs of society because of easy credit have access to the lower class, to the middle class, to the upper class, not the elites though. You can have great credit and whatever, but there are certain classes you're never going to have access to because you'll never have enough money. But they have access. These people who are the bottom dregs of society, the bottom of the lower class, have access to the middle class, and they've brought their degeneracy and their influence, and it's unfortunately become mainstream. So I didn't have that when I was younger. And so people were, if anybody said anything, they meant it. And if they made a promise, they kept it. And nowadays, because the dregs of society have such an influence on our young people, people just don't trust each other. If anybody says anything, they don't trust that there's gonna be any follow through. But what I find weird is the blind trust of the establishment. So when I was a young parent, a lot of people would say, well, you can't spank your kids anymore. It just sounds like I'm getting off track here, but I'll come to a point real soon. You can't spank your kids anymore because you'll be arrested. I'm like, really? No, I'm a responsible adult. I'll spank if I want to spank. You can't go beating the crap out of your kids and hurting them. You're going to go to jail. But you can spank your kids. But people started making that excuse because they wanted the easy way out and they didn't want a parent. And because lower classes of society don't take care of their kids. There's the R selection and the K selection. Certain segments of society just don't take care of their kids. And when more responsible groups of people, well, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe the influence or there's because of easy credit and welfare, we have an abundance of people who just don't want to take care of their kids, who don't want to raise their kids. They want to have a high number of kids and low effort or low investment in them. But anyway, so back to how did the nose tribe influence this? The mindset that and I ran into this when my son was young, and I would go to the school and I would say, no, my son is not typing his papers out. He is writing them by hand. I do not understand why you are telling him he has to type out his papers for school, because I didn't want him on the computer. And as a parent, I was just a hard-ass parent, and I was incredible. I didn't want my kid on the computer. I did not allow my son to be on the internet, and the school wanted him to have access to the internet to do schoolwork. Well, I'm sorry, but the internet is not for young people. They are not emotionally mature enough to deal with the dregs of society, because anybody can get on the internet these days, and anybody can have any sort of influence or push some sort of an idea, and You know who plants the seeds in my kid's mind? Me. I'm the one who does that. Not the school, not other people, not the internet, nobody. It's my job to make sure that my child grows up to be a person of integrity and contributes to society. So, when the schools start telling your kids that their parents don't care about them, and then the parents start believing all the nonsense, well, we don't care about our kids, and then they start, and then parents start thinking that, well, my children are older and they understand, because people don't understand age. I'm sorry, not all people, but a lower class person does not see their child as having an age appropriate or an age mentality. What am I saying here? They don't keep their verbiage age appropriate. They think that their children can handle anything because their children have the same sort of emotional maturity as they do. Well, it screws kids up when you introduce adult concepts. They're not ready for that. And it's, as a parent's job, it's our job to get ready. But the school influence, the teacher, I say, my son's not typing. He's writing all his papers out. And she'll say, well, I can't read the kid's writing. I'm like, well, that's not my fault. And then she'd say, they were supposed to learn handwriting back in whatever grade. This is like the 10th grade or something my son's in. And, the teacher's right there, but I said, sorry, my son's handwriting all his papers. You know what? When I went to college, I handwrote all my papers. I did not type. I typed a few because that's when they started having computers, but it was such a waste of time. Because we had to, put in that giant floppy disk thing and wait for the computer to boot up. But anyway, I hope I'm not getting too far off a track here. So how is the J tribe or the Nose tribe influencing people? And it's just mostly this younger generation. It's not completely, it's all generations that they've influenced. And how are we responsible for that? So it's both yes and no. At a certain point in time, I have to be responsible for my choices and my behavior. But until you get better information, you're going to do the best you can with the information that you have. And not everybody seeks out better information. And so this need for credit, the need to have fancy stuff, the need to, basically, if you don't have a role model, because I had a lot of role models growing up, and nowadays it's really hard for younger people to find solid role models or role models with a solid moral character. And if they don't think about finding a role model, because a lot of them don't, they just want to live like children, because, if you're not taught to be responsible and you're not taught to control your impulses, it's really a hard thing to do when you get older. And a lot of parents are not teaching their children impulse control. And so right now we have a huge number of people who have no impulse control. And they're miserable. They're miserable. They work 2 jobs. They work really hard. They come home. They pay their bills, and they got nothing left over. And they're like, well, I can't afford a house. I can't afford to save. I can't afford. Well, why is that? Because they never had a role model in their life to influence them. Does that make any sense? So, well, why is it that we don't have any role models? Or where did all these role models go? And so basically when people got easy credit, because impulse control is something that you have to be taught, I think. It has to be demonstrated for people. If people don't see that there's impulse control, they're just going to go crazy and they're going to just chase after their gluttony. And so basically when you chase after your gluttony, you chase after your impulses, and you sell yourself out. You've sold yourself to the devil. Does that make any sense? So in that respect, because when I was younger, those, see, we didn't have that much degeneracy. Well, there wasn't really that many people. You know, I grew up on the West Coast, and the biggest city, you know, Portland was a city, but it was a small city. And I remember the first time somebody said that Portland is the biggest city between Seattle and San Francisco. And I went to San Francisco when I was young, and that's a city. Portland was not a city in the same regard as Seattle or San Francisco. And even Seattle wasn't really that big. And now that the government has brought in so many people, does it sound like I'm getting off track here? Yes, it does. Okay, let's try to rein myself in so I get back on track. Anyway, so there's my point. Yes, the Nose Tribe has influenced people. They have ruined their life. And is there anything that we can do about it? I don't know about that. All right, so now let me address Gary from Grindel61. And he's got a new YouTube channel, Deegan Committee, I think it is. And he did a live stream last night, and then before that he did a video. And let's see, in one of the videos he talked about going to an open air market, you know, like a farmer's market sort of thing. And he said everybody there was wearing a face diaper except for him. And there's nobody there telling anybody to put on their diapers. Nobody, you know, no signs, no police, no monitors. Anybody could come in and out, but everybody was dutifully wearing their little face diaper. Now, how in the world are we going to take our country back if everybody is complying? That was his point. Why? Why save our country, our culture, anything, if people are so easily influenced that, you know, that they want to wear that diaper willingly? Nobody wants to fight back. And you want to bet all those people got the Rona jab? Oh yeah, people are lining up to get it. Except for, you know, the group that I told you about, construction workers. They're the people that are the most resistant to this this jab. But what's the point of taking our country back if there's so many people that don't want to live, you know, the life of a Westerner? They want to be a global citizen. What do? You can't, and any of you who've ever talked to these people, they're crazy. You can't talk them out of stupid. You cannot fix stupid. You ever see Ron White? He he used to be, I don't know if he still is, Blue Collar Comedy Tour, something like that. You just can't fix stupid. There's not a pill you can take, a class you can attend. You just can't fix stupid. And so these people, they're like zombies, and they just want to comply because they think if the harder that they comply, the sooner the tyrannical government will stop being tyrannical. I don't know. But, you know, I always thought that I have this assumption, maybe I had it and I no longer have it anymore, that once you're scared of something, if you're scared long enough, you will stop being scared. Like one time I was out surfing, and this is when I first started surfing, and I got caught in this wave, and it went on and on and on and on and on, and I screamed my head off, and I screamed and I screamed and I screamed, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not dead yet. I guess I could stop screaming. And everybody else in the water was laughing at me because it wasn't really that big of a wave. And I was just caught in it. It wasn't like it had pulled me under. Now, I've had them pull me under before, and that's no fun. But just the ones, you know, grab me and pull me across the ocean. And but eventually you stop being scared. But, I mean, is that true? Or maybe it was just me. Maybe I'm just weird like that. So that was one point that Gary made in one video, and then he did a video last night, a live stream last night, and he said, you know, because there's a lot of people out there who think that this Rona is real, who think the CV-19 is real. It's like, well, okay, if the CV-19 was real, how come there's an increasing problem with homeless people? Why has homelessness gotten worse? if this was real, that would have been the first population it took out. Absolutely would have been the first population it took out. And I mean, you could tell people there's no illness out there where you're asymptomatic. You cannot be sick with something and not have any symptoms. Every single illness, every single organism you get infected with has symptoms. And they're just like, but the TV said you could be sick and not know it, and the only way to know it if you have this deadly disease is if you get tested. Or 2 face masks is common sense. I mean, come on. Come on. And so basically what, and another thing that Gary said is that, no, I already talked about that. Like, why would we save our country? Why would we fight back? There's so many people out there that want to comply. They want to be global citizens. I don't know. All right, white people, that's about it for now. Thank you so much for listening.